These are just a few of the letters that Diana sent through the years.
In October 1996, Princess Diana predicted her own death.
Lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother. Made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia.
The funeral of Diana, Princess of Wales, on September the 6th, 1997.
2 weeks ago, he released the letter, blanking out the name of the person Diana believed was plotting her murder.
Somewhere in a private vault, right now, sits a collection of 64 handwritten letters that could sell for up to $1 million. Not because of who wrote them, but because of what's inside them, and because the man who's held onto them for over 3 decades has spent almost as long trying to cash them in. This is the other side of the Princess Diana letters story. Not the sentimental kind, but the kind tangled up in money, betrayal, and a legal loophole that means even a buyer with $1 million still can't legally read what they've bought out loud. Share this with everyone you know, because this isn't old royal gossip. This is an active auction story, still unfolding, with real legal stakes attached to it right now. Before we go further, subscribe to Vault of Discovery. We follow paper trails other channels don't bother finishing. Here's where this begins. The letters at the center of this story were written by Diana between 1989 and 1991 to former British Army officer James Hewitt, the man Diana would later publicly admit in her explosive 1995 BBC Panorama interview with Martin Bashir that she had been involved with. In that interview, she said it herself, in words that have been quoted for 30 years. She told the nation she adored him. That single sentence turned Hewitt from a private figure into one of the most scrutinized men in modern royal history, and it's exactly why the letters he's held onto since then have never stopped being valuable. Think about what that timing means. Hewitt didn't write a tell-all and disappear. He's spent decades circling back to these letters as a financial asset. In 2003, he told CNN's Larry King he'd already turned down offers reportedly worth millions for just 10 of them. In 2009, he publicly said he'd never sell. Then, according to reporting reviewed by IB Times UK, a batch of 64 letters, some reportedly including handwritten notes from a young Prince William, were quietly shopped to auction houses and private dealers in the US. And more recently, in 2023, intermediaries acting for Hewitt approached the London auction house Bonhams directly, hoping to sell the collection in the open market. Here's the first twist, and it's the one most people don't know. Bonhams said no, not because the letters weren't valuable, because they were too valuable in the wrong way. Internal correspondence reported by GB News shows the auction house told Hewitt's team that a sale would almost certainly draw its highest price in the United States, where there are more buyers at that level, and where the sale would likely be less contentious than putting it in front of the British public. In other words, one of Britain's oldest auction institutions looked at Diana's own private letters and decided they were too politically radioactive to sell in her home country. So Hewitt's team moved the deal to Heritage Auctions in Dallas, Texas, a firm that markets itself as the world's largest collectibles auctioneer, where a wealthy private collector was reportedly lined up to pay close to $1 million. Royal commentator Ingrid Seward, reacting to the sale attempt, didn't hold back. She called it, in her words, a final insult to a woman who has been dead for almost 30 years and has no ability to consent to any of this happening. That's the emotional core of the story, a private relationship, conducted in handwriting, being turned into a repeatable revenue stream by the one person who kept the physical originals. But here's the second twist, and it's the one that actually matters legally. Even if that sale goes through, even if a buyer hands over $1 million for the physical pages, they still can't legally publish a single word of what's written inside them. According to legal analysis reported by The Times and referenced in coverage from National World, Hewitt is free to sell the physical letters as objects, but the copyright over the actual words Diana wrote still belongs to the trustees of her estate. That means ownership and the right to reproduce the content are two completely separate things. A buyer could own the paper. They could frame it. They could keep it in a vault forever. But if they tried to publish the text, release a photo of the handwriting, quote a paragraph, put it in a documentary, the estate's trustees would have a legal claim against them. It's a strange kind of ownership. You can buy Diana's handwriting, but you still can't legally let the world read what it says. Think about what that reveals. The letters aren't really being sold as information. They're being sold as objects, physical proof of intimacy, valuable specifically because they're rare and untouchable, not because anyone buying them will ever be allowed to make the contents public. It's the auction world equivalent of buying a sealed vault and being told you can keep the vault. Just never open the door for anyone else to see inside. And the Hewitt letters aren't an isolated case. A separate batch of Diana's letters, 32 letters and message cards, this time written to close friends Susie and Tariq Qasim, has also gone to auction, broken up and sold individually rather than kept together as one archive. According to reporting on that sale, the Qasim said that owning letters that emotionally significant felt like a responsibility they didn't want to pass down to their own children or grandchildren. So instead of keeping the collection intact as a family heirloom, they chose to sell it off piece by piece. In those letters, Diana wrote candidly about the crushing weight of her divorce negotiations with Charles, describing herself in one line as feeling driven to her knees by the process. That's not a quote from a biographer's interpretation. That's Diana's own handwriting, sold at auction, revealing exactly how personally devastating the most public divorce in modern royal history actually was to live through. Here's the third twist, and it's the one that reframes the entire pattern. Every single one of these letters, the Hewitt correspondence, the Qasim letters, the earlier honeymoon letters to school friend Catherine Hanbury, exists in public awareness today for one reason. Someone who received them personally decided to sell, not the palace, not an official archive, not a historian granted access through royal permission. Private individuals, holding physical letters in drawers and safety deposit boxes for decades, eventually deciding that the financial or emotional weight of holding onto Diana's private words had become too much to carry quietly. The entire modern record of what Diana actually thought and felt in private is, functionally, being assembled by auction houses, not archivists. That's strange when you sit with it. The Royal Collection Trust, the National Archives, and official royal biographers have controlled almost every authorized account of Diana's public life for 30 years. But the raw, unfiltered record of her private one is scattered across Bonham's rejection letters, a Dallas auction house, and a family in possession of 32 letters they didn't want their grandchildren to inherit. Nobody planned this as a historical record. It's assembling itself, transaction by transaction, almost by accident. One thing is absolutely certain. Princess Diana's most intimate private correspondence isn't sitting in a museum or a national archive where historians can study it properly. It's scattered across auction houses in London, Dallas, and private collections, changing hands for 6 and 7 figures, legally ownable but legally unquotable, revealing a woman in crisis over her marriage and her divorce, in words she never intended the public to read. Bonhams wouldn't touch the sale because of how contentious it would be in Britain. A Texas auction house took it instead. And decades after her death, the true, unfiltered record of what Princess Diana actually felt in private is still being written into existence, one uncomfortable auction listing at a time, bought, sold, and legally silenced, all at once.